you guys? King Lagerfeld here, back with another video reaction. And today we're going to be reacting to a MrBallen video. This one is Top 3 Places You Can't Go and People Who Went There Anyway, Part 5. Now, I don't know why I didn't start from Part 1, but I just chose one at random. But yeah, MrBallen, his videos are pretty interesting. They're pretty terrifying at times. So yeah, let's go ahead and get into this video and see the top 3 places that people shouldn't have gone, but they went anyway. As usual, some people do that, and I don't know why. Why put yourself in danger? But anyway, you guys, let's go ahead and get into this video and see what happens with these stories. Let's go ahead and get into it.
There is this horrifying creature that lives on a tiny uninhabited island in the southwestern Pacific that lives underground, and at night it will come out and it will eat anything from coconuts to fish to birds to pigs to people.
What
and
is
in
it?
Today's top
Oh my
story,
God.
we're going to learn about someone that accidentally
This is already
wound
terrifying.
up on this island, totally stranded, and came face to face with this nightmarish creature. But before I get into today's stories, if you're a fan of the strange, dark, and mysterious delivered in story format, then you come to the right channel, because that's all we do, and we upload 3, 4, even 5 times every week. So if that's of interest to you, on the next cold day, sneak behind the like button and slap their ears and then run away. Also, please subscribe to this channel and turn on all notifications so you don't miss any of our weekly uploads.
Okay.
All right, let's get into today's story. Dr. Guy Garman, also known as Doc Deep, was an avid scuba diver, and in 2015 he decided he was going to put his scuba diving to the test and try to break the world record for the deepest recreational scuba dive. At the time, the current record was 1,090 feet, set by Ahmed Gaber in 2014. Guy's plan was to go down to 1,090 feet and then keep going to 1,200 feet, and that would be his record-setting mark. But in order to do that, you need a dive site that goes down to 1,200 feet. But luckily, Guy did most of his scuba diving off the coast of St. Croix in the Caribbean, and that area was known for an incredibly deep dive spot. Now, when most people think of scuba diving in the Caribbean, they think of beautiful clear water and amazing coral reef and exotic fishes, and everyone's so happy and it's so great and the water's so warm. And off St. Croix, that was true. But if you continued going offshore about 250 feet, you'd reach a drop-off that's known as the wall. And we're not talking about a gradual drop-off. We're talking about the seafloor going from flat to turning 45 degrees and going straight down 2 miles into complete black abyss. Now, the only people that are actually allowed to dive into the wall are very experienced scuba divers with all the certifications. But if you're a tourist and you come to St. Croix, you can still scuba dive off the coast, where it is beautiful and shallow and warm and there's reefs and fish. But you're allowed to swim out to the edge of the wall. And people report getting out I'm not doing that. Standing on the edge
I would never risk
looking in the water with their mask and not being prepared for how intimidating it is. I mean, you're standing on the one side, and behind you is like this tropical paradise, and in front of you is this seemingly endless void where we don't even know what's down there. I mean, we've only explored 10% of the ocean. These deep portions of the ocean,
you don't even know what's down there.
We don't know what's down there. But we do know is that sometimes whales will dive down into these deeper sections of the water, and scientists will be tracking their dive, and when they come up again, after only going down maybe 1,000 or 2,000 feet, they'll return with these massive bites taken out of them, because apparently there are creatures down there that we haven't discovered yet that are so big
that can bite a whale?
So aggressive that a whale seems like a reasonable thing to go after.
And so
imagine standing on the edge of the cliff looking out and being like, what's
and you're gonna go down there as a
guy
human?
Decides, I'm gonna find out what's down there, and I'm gonna do my record-setting dive at the wall.
Absolutely
and so after meticulous planning and hiring a support team that's going to be there to help him do this dive, he, his wife, and his son fly to St. Croix, and they get ready to do this dive. Guy had arranged for a line to be lowered right at the edge of the wall that was weighted down by an anchor that was going to go down all the way to 1,300 feet. And they would put a metal placard at the 1,200 foot mark on the actual line, so that when Guy went down, he would reach that placard at 1,200 feet. That's the record-setting mark. He would use a grease pen to mark the placard to indicate, I made it, this is legitimate, and then he would go back up, and that's how the dive was going to go. And so in the early morning of August 15th, 2015, Guy, along with his big support team, They head out to the edge of the wall. Guy gets into the water along with his son, who's going to go down with him for the first 200 feet. And he looks up at the support boat and he gives him the okay. He's ready to start the dive. And then he and his son give the signal. They're ready to go down. And they start their descent into the void. As they're sinking lower and
And
lower,
that's the last
and lower,
time
the water
they-
column is getting darker.
That's the
and
last
darker
time they
until
were
it's
seen, right?
completely and totally pitch black. They reach the 200-foot mark. They come to a stop as was planned. And Guy's son Kip would give his father a squeeze for good luck because they can't communicate. And then Kip would go back up, and Guy on his own continues down to the 1,200-foot mark.
Oh.
Once Guy was on his own, a timer started because it's very important to track how long he's down at depth. And his team was expecting him to be back up at the 350-foot mark in 38 minutes from when his son left. But 38 minutes came and went, and he was not at the 350-foot mark.
Uh-oh.
But even though this is a big problem, Guy had a whole bunch of extra air canisters with him, and so if he ran into any sort of problem, he would be able to continue to breathe air and fix the problem before coming up. It would just mean longer decompression stops along the way up. And since he was tethered to the guideline, they knew he couldn't drift away. And so they just had to wait and hope that he ran into some problem and that he would fix it eventually and then he would come back up again. But he never did. They couldn't really send a rescue mission down to get him because Guy was going so deep. He was the only one that was able to get down there. No one else was qualified or would be able to do it or had the right equipment for it. He was
So why
totally
would you
on his
risk
own.
it? I mean,
It would take 3 days before they were able to get the right equipment.
3 days?
Able to pull this lineup out of the water, and attached at the end of it was Guy, and he was deceased. He had drowned. But the really scary thing about what happened to Guy is when he went down into that abyss, he had all these extra air canisters attached to him. And so presumably he went down the line, probably all the way down to the record-breaking mark, and then he got trapped somehow. And as he's trapped on this line in total darkness, surrounded by who knows what down there, probably for several hours, he just cycled through his backup air canisters wondering, am I gonna run out of air and drown? Or am I gonna get attacked by some animal down here?
Wow. I mean, adventures like that are not worth it.
There is this
Like,
tiny little stream
right.
that winds its way through a forest in Yorkshire, England called the Bolton Strid. It's not very wide, you could jump over it. It doesn't appear to be very deep, it looks like maybe a foot or two, and it's not moving very fast, but that's all an illusion. There are signs up all over the place that say do not go near the Bolton Strid, it kills people. Because just beneath the surface of this seemingly tame water body is a natural booby trap that has a 100% mortality rate, meaning every
oh
single
my God,
person ever
100%?
set foot in the Bolton Strid.
So you will die.
In 1998,
Wow.
Barry and Lynn Collett were walking along the Bolton Strid on their second day of their honeymoon.
What's
and all of
under
a sudden,
there? It's
a
like a-
torrential downpour starts just raining down on them, and the rocks they were on suddenly got pretty slick, and Lynn slips and falls into the Strid. Barry, being a good husband, runs over to try to save her, and he too falls
Oh
into the
my
Strid.
God.
A man named Desmond Thomas was on the other side of the Strid, and he saw Barry as he was running for his wife, and he saw him fall in, and he watched Barry's face as he was looking at him as if he was going to stay afloat at the top. Desmond said it looked like someone came up and grabbed his leg and yanked him under the water, and he didn't see him again. Lynn's
Dang,
body
how
was found
strong
6
is that
days later
water
in West
current?
Yorkshire, and Barry's body was
Shoot.
found over a month later, 10 miles downstream. In another case, in 2010, an 8-year-old
10
boy named
miles?
Aaron Cage was playing by the Bolton Strid for his birthday. There's an area that's totally safe, that's away from the Strid, where people have picnics and that kind of thing. And he came down to the edge of the Strid and was running on the rocks, and he slipped and he fell in. Now, an adult saw this happen, and they ran over and they were able to grab onto him while he's in the water. But the pull from inside the water was so strong that this person couldn't hold on to this child, who was eventually sucked under and dragged away.
Oh my
And
God.
beyond these two
How
reports,
strong
there's
is the
dozens of
water?
others
Like,
of
what-
people trying to jump over the
How can it
Strid
be that
and falling
strong?
in and drowning. So
What-
why is the Bolton Strid so deadly?
Water is
If you look at this
scary.
picture,
It really
this is.
is.
Of the river wharf, and it's just a little ways upstream of the Bolton Strid. And all this water in the river wharf gets funneled into the Bolton Strid. And the way it fits through that narrow section that is the Bolton Strid is the river turns on its side. So when you're looking at the Bolton Strid and you think, oh, that's not that deep. Well, it is that deep. It's at least as deep as the river wharf is wide. And if you look at it on the surface and you say, oh, well, the Bolton Strid's not moving very fast. Well, that's because underneath the surface, there is a whipping current. And in fact, the current that runs through the Strid is so strong that if you were standing on one of the rocks overlooking the water, you're looking down into the Bolton Strid. Well, you're not really standing on solid rock. You're kind of standing on a ledge. You just don't know it because the water meets the edge of the ledge. Underneath the rock you're standing on, the water has completely
Why are people even allowed in this area?
Before you get sucked under the water, you would get sucked against the side and you would disappear under one of those shelves and go way far back underneath these rocks. And then you get sucked under and drown. And a lot of people who fall into the Strid, they don't make it out the other side. They don't get downstream. They get pulled into all these different caverns and tunnels that have been carved out by that current, and they're trapped in there forever because no one's going in to retrieve them, not even with scuba gear. Because if you get in there with scuba gear, the current will push you into
I wouldn't risk it no matter how much experience I have. No, I'm not risking that. Claws.
On June 1st, 1937, Amelia Earhart took off from Oakland, California on an eastbound flight around the world. It was her second attempt to become the first pilot ever to circumnavigate the globe. She, along with her flight navigator Fred Noonan, flew to Miami and then down to South America, across the Atlantic to Africa, and then east to India and Southeast Asia. The pair reached Lae, New Guinea on June 29th. A couple days later, on July 2nd, Earhart and Noonan would depart Lae, and they would make their way to tiny Howland Island, which was their next refueling stop, but they would never arrive. What Earhart was trying to accomplish at the time was such a big deal, and so when they disappeared, it was heartbreaking, and it made international headlines, and this huge search was launched for them, but they can't find them, and after 2 weeks, they officially declared they were lost at sea and most likely dead. 3 years later, and 300
that Amelia Earhart thing is like a huge mystery still to this day.
To get to before they vanished. A British scientist was on this tiny little uninhabited island called Niku Maroro, and they made a startling discovery. He found an incomplete skeleton next to what looked like the remains of a campfire, and their skeleton was kind of torn all over the place, like they had been ripped limb from limb.
Oh my God!
Because of Niku Maroro's proximity to Howland Island, everybody speculated that this has got to be the body of either Amelia Earhart or Noonan. The bones were sent to two doctors in Fiji, and they unfortunately said, no, this isn't Earhart or Noonan, this is somebody else. So those
I was about
bones
to say, I know she was never
of,
found,
no
so
one could claim them or
that's shocking if that was her.
Everybody just kind of forgot about it until 2017, when a forensic anthropologist decided to manually re-examine the measurements of the bones that were taken off of Niku Maroro Island and compare them to real measurements of Amelia Earhart. And they discovered that clearly those doctors in Fiji had made a mistake, because the measurements of these bones match Amelia Earhart almost exactly. So researchers go back to Niku Maroro Island, and they go to the area where these bones were found near that campfire, and they look around and they find.
So wait, Amelia Earhart was found? Like I always thought that she was missing.
A freckle cream, and Amelia
that's what the history books say, right?
She liked to use freckle cream to cover them up. She was kind of famous for doing that. And so they found that freckle cream on this island near bones that look like they belong to Amelia Earhart. So while some scientists are putting their energy into
that makes sense.
that yes, those bones were Amelia Earhart. We don't have the bones, but we can show you with the measurements and the freckle cream. And there's another picture that apparently shows the landing gear of her plane off of Niku Maroro Island. So there's some people that are working on that angle, and there's another group of scientists and researchers that are saying, okay, let's assume that that really was Amelia Earhart. Let's figure out what happened to her once she got to Niku Maroro Island. And the leading theory is horrifying. Although Niku Maroro Island is uninhabited by people, it is inhabited by one of the scariest creatures on the planet, the coconut crab. They're 3 feet long. They can carry at least 6 times their body weight, and they use their pincers that are as strong as a lion's jaw to rip open coconuts, which is their main source of food. But coconuts are not the only thing they eat. They'll also eat pigs. They'll eat each other. They'll even eat themselves.
What?
And they're prolific
Themselves?
climbers because they need to get up.
What kind of savage crabs
but
are
in some
these?
parts of the world, they use their climbing ability to climb up and grab birds and break their wings with their pincers and then drag them into their underground
That is
burrows where they
terrifying.
live too. The few researchers
How do you
and
eat
scientists that
yourself?
have gone out to Niku Island have said at night
Birds,
thousands of
pigs?
these crabs will emerge from their underground burrows and they'll go looking for food. And they have a really keen sense of smell and they can smell blood. So when one of the crabs goes up and grabs a bird and starts ripping it apart, the thousands
What kind of
others
killer
will come
crabs
charging
are
over and
these?
Swarm
What?
the bird because they've smelled the blood and they'll rip it to pieces and they'll all try to get in on the action. And so the theory goes, Earhart and Noonan are making their way to Howland
So
Island.
yeah, Amelia
They got
Earhart
trapped
did not
somehow,
stand a
and they
chance.
wind
I
up
see.
crash landing 350 miles away on Niku Island on one of the reefs. Noonan probably dies on impact, and Earhart, who's badly wounded and probably bleeding, she gets onto the island
and then they
she
smelled
makes
the
her way up to
blood.
that area where
Wow.
that campfire was found. And for some amount of time, Earhart is able to survive off of whatever she had on her in those glass bottles. But in her weakened state and bleeding, at some point she probably
She got
attracted the
attacked.
coconut crabs who one night came out and swarmed her, ripped her to pieces, and ate
Oh.
her. Today, Niku Island
Man,
is
I hope
only
that's not how
inhabited
she-
by the coconut
I hope
crabs
that's not how she
and
went
is
out.
protected land under the
'Cause
Republic of
dang.
Kiribati. And so if you want to go, you have to get express permission from the Republic of Kiribati, and they send
Oh, I'm
someone
not
to go
going.
with you. And there's no
Never.
airport on the island, so you have to land
Never.
on a separate island and then ride to Niku on a boat. But you have to pass through Cyclone Alley, which means you can only travel there at certain parts of the year, and even then it's incredibly dangerous. So that's gonna do it, guys. I hope you enjoyed today's stories. Let me know in the comments what you thought of them.
I mean, that is absolutely crazy. I mean, I really do hope that Amelia Earhart did not go out like that. I mean, the history books, you know, over time have told us that she was missing and she was never found, but it sounds like she might have been, you know, discovered on this island. But I mean, I hope not, because I hope that's not how she went out, because she, that's a terrible death to go through. But yeah, and that river in the second story, that was terrifying as well. I mean, if you see like a calm river, most people, you know, they're probably going to put their feet in, or they're going to jump in for a little bit, not expecting it to have like a vicious current at the bottom that's going to suck them in and drown them and then drag them 10 miles away from where they were. I mean, that is horrifying. Oh my goodness, these stories were terrifying. I cannot believe any of these. I mean, but you know, it happens when people, you know, do things. They're daring, they're adventurous. You know, I would say that all of the people involved in this story were adventurous, and you know, it didn't pay off. It didn't pay off. I mean, it's good to be curious, but sometimes it's not worth it, because you can lose your life. You can lose, you know, body parts. You can lose mental health. I mean, it's not really worth it sometimes. But anyway, guys, great episode of MrBallen. Top 3 places you can't go. Yeah, and I'm not going here to any of these places. But anyway, guys, great video by MrBallen. Let me know what you guys thought about this down in the comments below. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Until next time, be blessed, be your best, and keep them the stress. Bye, guys.